Revelation 12 is one of the most intriguing chapters in the Bible, featuring a woman, a child, and a dragon. But who are these characters? In this video, we'll explain their significance and what they mean for us today. Revelation 12 tells a story full of vivid imagery and deep symbolism. The woman is described as being clothed with the sun, the moon under her feet, and a crown of 12 stars on her head. This striking picture raises many questions. Who is this woman? What do the sun, moon, and stars represent? The child she carries is also a central figure, destined to rule all nations. But why is his birth so important? Then there's the dragon, a fearsome creature with 7 heads and 10 horns, waiting to devour the child. What does this dragon symbolize, and why is it so determined to destroy the child and the woman? By understanding these symbols, we can uncover powerful truths that are relevant even today. This video will dive deep into the identities and roles of the woman, the child, and the dragon, unraveling the mystery behind these symbolic figures. Understanding the symbols in Revelation 12 is crucial because they reveal deep spiritual truths. Misinterpreting these symbols can lead to confusion and fear, but a proper understanding can provide hope and clarity. The stakes are high when it comes to interpreting this chapter because it speaks to the cosmic struggle between good and evil. The woman, the child, and the dragon are not just characters in a story. They represent larger forces at work in the world. If we misunderstand who they are, we risk missing out on the profound lessons and assurances that Revelation offers. For instance, recognizing the woman as a symbol of God's people helps us see our place in God's plan. Identifying the child as Jesus Christ affirms his central role in salvation. Understanding the dragon as Satan sheds light on the nature of spiritual warfare and the reality of evil. This knowledge is empowering because it reminds us that despite the dragon's attempts to cause chaos and destruction, God's ultimate victory is assured. Misinterpretation can lead to fear and hopelessness, but understanding the true meaning behind these symbols provides a foundation for faith and confidence in God's plan. The woman in Revelation 12 is often seen as a symbol of God's people. She is clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet, and a crown of 12 stars on her head. This imagery represents glory, authority, and the 12 tribes of Israel. The sun clothing the woman symbolizes her being enveloped in God's light and righteousness. The moon under her feet suggests dominion and victory over temporal things. The crown of 12 stars represents the 12 tribes of Israel, indicating that this woman is closely linked to God's chosen people. Some interpretations also see the woman as a symbol of the church, the community of believers. Just as Israel was God's chosen nation, the church is the body of Christ, chosen to spread the gospel. The woman's pregnancy and the birth of her child add another layer of meaning. This aspect can be seen as the church bringing forth Christ to the world, enduring labor and pain as it fulfills its mission. The pain of childbirth symbolizes the struggles and challenges faced in this mission. Despite these hardships, the image of the woman is ultimately one of victory and glory. She is protected and preserved by God, showing his care and provision for his people. The woman's story in Revelation 12 reminds us that, although we may face trials and opposition, we are under God's protection and destined for glory. The child is a key figure in this chapter. He is destined to rule all nations with an iron scepter. This child represents Jesus Christ, who is prophesied to reign as King of Kings. The birth of the child signifies the coming of Christ into the world, fulfilling Old Testament prophecies about a Messiah who would save his people. The iron scepter symbolizes strong and just rule, indicating that Jesus will govern with authority and power. This imagery is drawn from Psalm 2 verse 9, which speaks of the Messiah breaking nations with a rod of iron, a metaphor for his ultimate sovereignty over all earthly powers. The child's birth is a moment of great significance because it marks the beginning of the fulfillment of God's redemptive plan. However, the dragon's presence at the birth, ready to devour the child, honors the opposition that Jesus faced from the very beginning. The dragon's attempt to destroy the child symbolizes Satan's efforts to thwart God's plan of salvation. Despite these efforts, the child is caught up to God and his throne, signifying Jesus' resurrection and ascension to heaven. This assures believers that, despite Satan's attempts to hinder God's work, Christ's victory is complete and secure. The narrative of the child's birth and ascension offers hope and encouragement, reminding us that Jesus reigns supreme and that his victory over evil is assured. The dragon is depicted as a great red creature with 7 heads and 10 horns. This dragon symbolizes Satan, who seeks to devour the child and wage war against the woman. The color red signifies destruction and bloodshed, reflecting Satan's destructive nature. The 7 heads and 10 horns indicate complete and pervasive power, symbolizing the various forms of evil and opposition that Satan uses to wage war against God's people. This imagery is further explained in Revelation 12 verse 9, where the dragon is identified as the ancient serpent, called the devil or Satan, who leads the whole world astray. The dragon's goal is to destroy the child, representing Satan's continuous efforts to undermine Christ's mission and work. The dragon's tail sweeping a third of the stars out of the sky and flinging them to the earth symbolizes the influence Satan has and the havoc he wreaks. This can be seen as a reference to the fallen angels who followed Satan in his rebellion against God. The dragon's pursuit of the woman, after failing to destroy the child, signifies Satan's ongoing persecution of God's people throughout history. Despite his power and rage, the dragon is ultimately defeated. He is cast out of heaven, a symbol of his ultimate downfall and loss of authority. This narrative reminds believers that, although Satan is powerful and relentless, his defeat is certain. God's protection over his people is assured, and the dragon's attempts to destroy them will ultimately fail. Understanding the dragon's symbolism helps us grasp the reality of spiritual warfare and the assurance of God's victory over evil. Revelation 12 also describes a war in heaven. Michael and his angels fight against the dragon, who is ultimately thrown down to earth. This represents the spiritual battle between good and evil. Michael, the archangel, is often seen as a protector of God's people and a leader in the heavenly army. His role in this cosmic battle highlights the organized and powerful resistance against Satan's rebellion. The dragon and his angels fighting back symbolizes Satan's persistent but ultimately futile efforts to usurp God's authority. The expulsion of the dragon from heaven signifies a decisive victory for the forces of good. This event underscores the idea that Satan's power is limited and that he has already been defeated in the spiritual realm. His fall to earth represents his continuing influence in the world, where he seeks to deceive and lead people astray. However, this also means that his time is short and his ultimate defeat is imminent. The war in heaven serves as a reminder to believers that the struggles they face are part of a larger spiritual conflict. It reassures them that, despite appearances, the outcome of this battle is already determined, and God's victory is assured. Understanding this cosmic struggle helps believers stay grounded in their faith, knowing that they are on the winning side and that their perseverance will be rewarded. After being cast down, the dragon pursues the woman. This symbolizes Satan's ongoing attempts to persecute God's people throughout history. The narrative shows the dragon, enraged at his defeat in heaven, turning his wrath toward the woman. This pursuit reflects the real-world persecution that believers have faced throughout the ages. From the early Christian martyrs to modern-day victims of religious oppression, Satan's efforts to harm God's people are relentless. The woman fleeing into the wilderness represents a place of refuge and safety prepared by God. It signifies that, even in the midst of persecution, God provides protection and sustenance for his people. The wilderness is often seen in the Bible as a place of trial and testing, but also as a place where God meets his people and cares for them. The 1,260 days that the woman is protected in the wilderness symbolize a period of trial and endurance. This time frame, often interpreted as symbolic, reassures believers that their suffering has a limit and that God's care is constant. The dragon's pursuit and the woman's protection highlight the ongoing spiritual battle and the assurance of God's provision. It reminds believers that, although they may face hardships, they are never abandoned. God's protective hand is always at work, guiding and sustaining them through their trials. Despite the dragon's efforts, the woman is given protection. She is taken to a place prepared by God, where she is cared for. This shows God's faithfulness in protecting his people. The imagery of the woman being given the wings of a great eagle to fly to the wilderness emphasizes the swiftness and power of God's deliverance. The eagle, often a symbol of strength and protection, signifies God's ability to rescue his people from danger. The wilderness, while typically seen as a place of desolation, is transformed into a place of safety and provision by God's intervention. This highlights the transformative power of God's care, turning what seems to be a place of trial into a sanctuary. The water spewed by the dragon to overtake the woman symbolizes the attempts of Satan to overwhelm and destroy God's people. However, the earth helping the woman by swallowing the flood demonstrates God's control over creation and his ability to use it to protect his people. This narrative illustrates that no matter how fierce the opposition, God's protection is always sufficient. It reassures believers that they are never out of God's reach and that his power is greater than any force that comes against them. The woman's protection is a testament to God's unwavering faithfulness and his commitment to safeguarding his people through all adversities. The woman is protected for a specific time period mentioned as 1,260 days. This time period is symbolic and can be interpreted in various ways, often seen as a period of trial and protection. The 1,260 days is equivalent to 3.5 years, a time frame that appears several times in prophetic literature, often representing a period of persecution and testing. This period is also referred to as time, times, and half a time, which symbolizes a broken, incomplete time, suggesting that the trials faced by God's people are temporary and have an end. Some interpretations see this period as representing the time of the early church's persecution by the Roman Empire, while others view it as a future period of tribulation before Christ's return. Regardless of the specific interpretation, the time frame highlights that God sets limits on the duration of suffering. It serves as a reminder that while believers may face trials and hardships, these are confined within God's sovereign plan and will ultimately lead to his glory and their benefit. This symbolic period reassures believers that their struggles are known to God and that he has a designated time for their relief and vindication. It encourages them to remain steadfast and faithful, knowing that their endurance will be rewarded and that God's protective care is always with them. It's essential to become clear about what you want in the long term. In 10 years' time, for example, in the final image, what is an activity that you see yourself doing every day? What do you have that makes your life a continuous journey of discovery? Ask yourself, who am I being now? What characteristics and traits do I have when I'm achieving, having, and doing all these things? This is crucial. Next, consider what your worldview is. How do you perceive the world when you are living this reality? How do you see the world when you're experiencing all this? Take a moment to bring powerful affirmations to life. First, create affirmations about your identity, how you see yourself. It could be something like, I am worthy. I am a magnet for abundance because I carry within me the magic touch of an alchemist. Then, create affirmations that relate to your vision of the world. For example, the world conspires in my favor. Everything happens at the right time and according to the divine plan. As you dedicate yourself to repeating these affirmations daily and internalizing them, be prepared to witness an incredible transformation. The reality you perceive, the way you see the world, will begin to change before your eyes. Even if what you want is apparently difficult for you today, it doesn't mean that you won't be able to achieve it tomorrow. Everything takes time, practice, and patience. So respect your time, but also don't let certain fears stop you from achieving the extraordinary. Make sure you take a moment to do this exercise. It has the power to completely revolutionize your life. The woman is protected for a specific time period mentioned as 1,260 days. This time period is symbolic and can be interpreted in various ways, often seen as a period of trial and protection. The 1,260 days is equivalent to 3.5 years, a time frame that appears several times in prophetic literature, often representing a period of persecution and testing. This period is also referred to as time, times, and half a time, which symbolizes a broken, incomplete time, suggesting that the trials faced by God's people are temporary and have an end. Some interpretations see this period as representing the time of the early church's persecution by the Roman Empire, while others view it as a future period of tribulation before Christ's return. Regardless of the specific interpretation, the time frame highlights that God sets limits on the duration of suffering. It serves as a reminder that while believers may face trials and hardships, these are confined within God's sovereign plan and will ultimately lead to His glory and their benefit. This symbolic period reassures believers that their struggles are known to God and that He has a designated time for their relief and vindication. It encourages them to remain steadfast and faithful, knowing that their endurance will be rewarded and that God's protective care is always with them. The mirror cycle is a concept that can change everything forever. If you learn to manipulate this mirror cycle for yourself, you will no longer be so uncertain about what you do. You will literally see reality changing before your eyes. It all starts with an observation. What's the backward attitude you had in the past? All the complaints, the bad things that happened, or the unconscious choices that were made? That's the present moment. When you look at the present moment and are faced with bills to pay and a job you don't like, you observe this and use it to form your image or attitude. When I say image, I mean the internal attitude, thoughts, and feelings that we present to the mirror. The mirror has no choice but to reflect, so it reflects and forms reality according to the reflected image. But what usually happens is that most people look at the reflection again and remain trapped in this cycle. This is an addictive trap that most people find themselves in. They watch and remain stuck in that pattern, and in the end, they think, damn, this keeps happening again and again. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. Then they try different tactics and strategies, starting a new business, and nothing works. It's like it works for a while, it gets them excited, but then they go back to that pattern simply because they can't make an internal change. But I want you to remember something very important. This is because there is no fundamental change happening in terms of worldview and identity. So the way to do this is to reverse this process. Most people start by observing, then creating the image, and then the reflection. This is the standard cycle for puppets. But if you want to become a co-creator, a true creator of your reality, you need to reverse this cycle. To break this cycle, we first start with the image we would like to form. We turn our backs on reflection, turning our back on looking at our current reality because we begin to realize that what is around us now has only been formed from decisions made in the past. You need to realize this, or nothing will change. If I want to shape tomorrow, I consciously choose today. So we start with the image, and when we choose the image and say, hey, this is what I want and this is what I have, the mirror has no choice but to start reflecting it in small amounts, little by little. Even small changes will happen slowly, with delay. So what do we do next? Instead of observing, we confirm. We take a look in the mirror to see what's working, and when we see the reflection, we think, oh, that's working, look, that happened. If you want more confidence, over time, you'll notice that people will start to welcome you better. If you want to improve some aspect of your work or business, you'll notice that things are getting better. Your whole world may be falling apart, but you only focus on the things you want to confirm, the things that correspond to that worldview and identity you've chosen to create. The idea is that you always keep doing it, and the more you keep doing it, it will turn into something beyond anything you've ever imagined. If you start using these principles, your life will change completely. This is real. This is something I applied and it really worked, so I'm passing it on to you. At the very beginning of my spiritual journey, I thought it was nonsense, but when I saw the results, it was insane. Things I wanted started to come to me even beyond what I had imagined. As we dive into the depths of the mirror of reality, we discover an inner power that we often overlook. What we see around us is, in fact, an echo of our beliefs, identity, and worldview. But the secret of transformation is, instead of just observing reality, we must shape our destiny with the image of who we want to be and what we want to achieve. As we form this new image, the mirror of reality responds with small changes, slowly transforming itself. The mirror of reality knows no limits. It only responds to what we offer it. Just like the alchemist who turns lead into gold, we can transmute our lives by adopting a mindset of abundance, focusing on what we have and what we want. Ultimately, our journey through the mirror of reality is a search for the truth within ourselves and a celebration of our ability to create, innovate, and transcend. Understanding the symbols in Revelation 12, the woman, the child, and the dragon, provides profound insights into the spiritual realities we face. The woman represents God's people, protected and cherished despite the dragon's relentless pursuit. The child symbolizes Jesus Christ, whose birth and ultimate victory over the dragon assure us of God's sovereign plan. The dragon, representing Satan, reminds us of the ongoing spiritual warfare, but also of his ultimate defeat. The war in heaven and the dragon's expulsion to earth highlight the cosmic struggle between good and evil. The dragon's pursuit of the woman and her subsequent protection illustrate the trials believers face and God's unwavering provision. The specific time period of 1,260 days reassures us that our trials are temporary and within God's control. The mirror cycle and the need to reverse it emphasize the importance of internal change and a steadfast worldview. By understanding these truths and applying these principles, we can navigate our spiritual journey with confidence, knowing that God's victory is assured and his protection is ever present.